Stitt.
Welcome to the Brother Retro channel. I had to make this little quick introduction for what's coming up next. Me and Pedro Barbadinho from YouTube channel Cat Videojogos we had an amazing talk with Craig Stitt, a former designer from Sega and Insomniac. Here on the channel we talk about video games, arts and crafts and nostalgia, so this was a perfect guest. This was not an interview, this was just a talk. Of course I had some questions prepared, but we just talked about everything we want. But probably you will have some questions that, oh, you talk about that game and didn't ask about something. So I challenge Craig and I challenge you to make some questions here on the video. Talk to me on Facebook, on Discord, I think I have something, Instagram, and you may appear in the next video with Craig and he will try to answer some questions if we have people making questions. If you like these kind of things, I will leave the link of all the interviews that I found on YouTube with Craig. He's an amazing guy. This was awesome. If you enjoy watching this as much as I enjoy doing it, you will love it. So grab some popcorns and let's go. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
Doing good? Nice. So, for those who don't know you, maybe my mom and dad only, actually in Portugal you didn't pop up as much as in other Facebook groups and YouTube, but in Portugal Sega was huge, more than Nintendo, because Mega Drive was a success.
Okay.
Our distributor, Echo Films, did a great job. I think they had the same mindset of Sega, trying to catch the cool kids and having the Sonic attitude, being a cool kid, and we love Sega. But for those who don't know, oh, I like that mug.
This is a pretty cool mug.
I have mine.
Very cool. Thank you very, very much. This is awesome.
No problem. I think I will do a giveaway of this mic. For those who don't know you, where did you work? What projects that you were in? Obviously, video games.
Yeah, well, I started with video games back in 1990 at Sega. I'd done some computer graphics before that, but it was like really boring business graphics, like pie charts, and sometimes you get some fun art stuff, but pretty boring stuff. But 1990, I started at Sega, and my very first game was Kid Chameleon. For, let's say, if Sega took up, if the Genesis took up big, or Mega Drive, because I'm always pleasantly surprised when somebody recognizes Kid Chameleon. That's my first game. But then, just due to various events, my second game was Sonic 2, where I was doing the background art. In fact, both the games I did background art. Kid Chameleon, I also did some of the animations, some of the characters. But Sonic 2, I did the backgrounds for Oil Ocean Zone and the Lost Hidden Palace Zone, which is now back officially in with the Origins release recently here, so that's exciting. And then Sonic Spinball and Comix Zone. I didn't do very much on Comix Zone, mostly just kind of clean up. And a game called The Ooze, which strange little game. It's amazing it actually got out the door. There were so many incredible games at Sega Technical Institute, Sega STI, the group I was with at Sega. That they were beautiful games. They were awesome games, and they just never made it out the door. But the Ooze did. So, and then I left Sega in 1995, and mostly because I was tired of the crazy stuff going on at Sega, and wanted to work with Mark Cerny again, who had hired me originally, and was I just really wanted to work with him again. He had a group, he needed an artist down in Los Angeles. So I moved down, so I went down to Los Angeles and started with Insomniac Games. So at the time, they had never made a game. There was just 3 guys. I would have never risked working down there, except for Mark was there. And I really trusted Mark, and I really wanted to work with Mark again. And so it's just the 3 guys, and they need an artist. And so first game was Disruptor. Great, awesome game. Won all sorts of wonderful accolades and great ratings, and the most accurate review I think we ever got was the how to say it was like the greatest little game you've never heard of, because there was no advertising for it.
Okay.
And after that, we went off to our little corners for a few weeks and came back and pitched the idea of what we wanted to do next. And I came back with the idea of doing a game where you got to be the dragon. And after several, everyone liked that, and after we kind of reworked it, Mark Cerny once again made some beautiful suggestions, and my game was slowly grew and became Spyro the Dragon. And then after Spyro, so I did the first 3 Spyro games. And then then we went on to do Ratchet and Clank. So I did the next 4 Ratchet and Clank games, and that's when I left the industry. So so the big ones were Sonic 2, and Spyro the Dragon, and Ratchet and Clank were the ones that everyone seems to know and love.
Yes, I just love the story of how you entered in Sega. Maybe a mixed feeling of let me try. And then you're in Sega, and oh my God, I have to play some video games on a home console. was it something like that? How did you?
I thought it was going to be for the Sega Arcade, and then I found out it was going to be for the home systems, and I didn't have a Nintendo. I didn't even really know about the Genesis. It was just coming out, or the Mega Drive. And it was so I had to borrow a friend's Nintendo. Hey, can I borrow your Nintendo and a bunch of games? And I just played like crazy for 3 or 4 days. But Mark Cerny, that entire group, it was the first internal group for Sega. Their first development team in America that was actually Sega and not a third party.
Okay.
And I wish somewhere I have that little news clipping that was the job offer, was the job posting that literally said wanted video game artists and video game designers, no experience necessary. Because Mark wanted new people. Mark wanted nice, fresh people that he could train to make games the way he wanted to make games.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Mark. So I had never considered going into games. It hadn't even crossed my mind. Well, prior to that, you really didn't need artists in games. It was the programmers doing all the art. You had little boxes flying around and bouncing on the screens. So by the time you got the Genesis, you actually needed artists doing the artwork in the games.
Yes, in Atari games, it's just big boxes.
Yeah, just a box.
It's interesting saying that you don't need experience, but you once said that you are not an hardcore gamer, and that makes you a bad designer because you don't know games, you don't know, you didn't knew the industry, but at the same time, I believe that can give you more creativity.
It can be a good thing. It can be a good thing.
You can create bad games, because if you don't know that doesn't work, you can create bad games, but you can create awesome games, like unique, because you are not stick to labels I need to create this kind of game. You can just be creative and create awesome things.
I think that's very true. It's that whole thing of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Well, if you've never been inside the box, the only way you can think is from outside the box. So there is a benefit to that.
About your projects in Sega, and not only, I sent you a box.
Yes.
Yes. It's finally time to open. You're going to choose not the path, but the order of the next events, if you can say this. You can open whatever you want, and let's talk about that.
Okay, let's find out here.
Okay.
Whoa.
You have a cable on the back.
Oh.
You can put it on USB.
It gets better?
I think so.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Pedro.
Good night. Good evening.
Craig is opening the Treasure Tales Shadowbox. I call it Shadowbox because it makes shadows.
I'm truly blown away.
I hope you like it.
I love it. It's absolutely beautiful. The interesting thing on this game, I had forgotten completely about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think where it was. I posted, because I had a videotape that was my resume that I put together when I was leaving Sega.
Just by that, you're my hero. Having a resume in a VHS format, it's awesome. It's beautiful.
And I hadn't watched the whole tape in like years. And I posted it on YouTube, on Facebook, I think somewhere. And somebody says, well, what's this Treasure Tales game? I went, what Treasure Tales? I'd completely forgotten about it. And it wasn't until I went back and watched the video. I went, oh, yeah. And then I went back and dug through my journals and so I got some dates when we worked on it. And it was only a couple of us. And unfortunately, nobody remembers anything more than that. A couple of people I've been able to get a hold of don't remember it either. We worked on it for months. And all that remains are some screenshots, or some faked screenshots that we used to pitch the game.
Okay.
Which is what this is. These are the screenshots.
One of the screen, yes. It was not easy because it's a little blurred the image and stuff.
Oh yeah,
I think it's okay.
It's incredible.
Okay.
It's for anybody listening to this who's working on anything, document stuff, keep stuff, hang on to it.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're usually on a crushed schedule. You're working hard. You're just trying to get the stuff done. You're just but if you're one of those people who gets lucky enough to work on something that 30 years later we're talking about still.
Yeah. That's unique. That's only yours.
You're going to wish you had more information. You're going to wish you kept those. Because I knew I did a bunch of drawings. I remember going to the library and checking out books on Mayan and Aztec cultures and trying to find out how to do the different kind of sculptures and that kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
And so I can remember getting those books, and I remember drawing and sketching out, trying to decide how to do these big heads and make them look like I think it was. See, now I think it was like a Mayan look. There is a difference between Mayan and Aztec, and I think
okay. So cool.
That is so awesome.
That's something that's only yours. It's unique. If it wasn't you, there was no Treasure Tales information. So this is
awesome.
This is
Can I ask a question about Sonic 2? My name is Pedro Barbadinho. I'm sorry, I don't introduce myself. Pleased to meet you.
Pedro.
He is from the YouTube channel Cat Videojogos. He loves Mega Drive or Genesis, and
I live from Sega. Sega for me is. Do you have the golden cartridge of Sonic 2?
Yes.
Yes, show us, please.
It's actually one of the few I actually have hanging up.
Oh,
there we go.
Whoa, that's amazing. That is amazing. I give an arm and a leg for that.
I mean, it's I'm always very tempted because there's no game in it, And I'm like, well, come on, guys, you could have put,
But
I've always been very tempted to open it up.
It's like a shell. It's like a shell, like a plastic shell.
But this is awesome.
But it's amazing, amazing,
amazing.
It's amazing item from Sega. Truly amazing.
I'm very fortunate. Like I said, this was the second game I ever worked on.
How was to work in Sonic 2? Only the ocean oil
oil ocean.
Oil ocean. Sorry.
There's oil ocean and oil ocean and then Hidden Palace Zone. And I just recently I was going back and watching, re-looking at all the artwork in Oil Ocean, and remembering doing it, and I had a lot of fun. If I go back and look at my journals, it was all very, very stressful. It was really stressful, partially because very, very tight timeline, very tight schedule, and I was working with some absolutely incredible people, incredible artists, incredible. Yasuhara, the lead game designer, awesome individual. Loved to work with him again. And then Yamaguchi, the other environment artist, and he came up with Tales, and so his backgrounds and his art were just phenomenal. And so here I am doing work that's right next to his. And wanting to have it be good, and being so new to the industry and being so excited. But I think what we were kind of talking about earlier, of coming from the outside of the industry and not really knowing, that was good. I wasn't as nervous as I should have been, because as excited as I was about Sonic, I didn't realize how well. No, back then no one realized how huge Sonic was going to be. I don't think anybody realized.
True.
40 years later, there's going to be 2 movies and hundreds of games, dozens and dozens at least.
And millions of fans.
Millions of fans. That as you say, I watch people talking, when they're specifically talking about the my artwork, like Oil Ocean or Hidden Palace, or the other, I realize it's millions of people.
It's millions.
It's millions. That really came home a few years later when I was working on one of the levels for Spyro the Dragon, and I was trying to model this staircase that you would run around. I was really having a hard time getting the geometry to work right, and I realized, no, this has to look good. This has to work. It's literally millions of people are going to be running up and down these stairs.
And you did the wonderful job with Spyro. The 2 first games for me are the best. Okay,
ones. Good. I agree. Lots of people like
are the best ones.
I like the first 2.
No, about Mega Drive, about Kid Chameleon. I want to talk about Kid Chameleon because it's an amazing game. It doesn't have movies, doesn't have other things, but for me, Kid Chameleon, it's truly. And you did all the bosses, the enemies.
I did a lot of the artwork on Kid Chameleon. There was 3 or 4 artists working on it. See, just before you started, I was talking about the games I'd worked on, and it's always exciting to meet someone who knows Kid Chameleon, because not many people do, and the people who do typically like it. They remember it because it was one of their favorite games. And so it's always awesome to talk to somebody.
It's one character. It's 10 characters in the game. It's 10 characters. Did you did the modeling of the characters?
I did about a third of the worlds, a third of the backgrounds. And then the characters I did, now their actual character names I can never remember because it's just whatever I call
it's a fly, a tank.
Yeah, so I did
the guy with an axe.
Did the tank, the knight, the samurai.
Samurai, yes.
And the skateboard.
Skateboards. The cyclone. It's a guy with the cyclone also.
Yeah. So I remember my roommate friend did the cyclone guy, the whirlwind guy, and Brenda did the little fly, and I think Brenda did Kevin. I mean, the actual the kid, you know, with no costume. I think Brenda Ross did the animations for him. It's interesting because I don't have any tattoos, and I've always kind of wanted one, but I've never found a piece of art I really like enough. One of the things I'm thinking of actually getting now is those first couple, my first ever video game characters. So the little knight, and actually make it look like pixels. So the knight and the samurai, and there's a little like T-Rex dragon.
Yes,
those are the first three guys I did. And so, tempted. If I get a tattoo, it'll probably be those guys. But yeah, no,
because Kid Chameleon has that 90s attitude. He's badass. He's a badass kid. Like the character that I just see the Sega Centipede, Astropede. The character has that badass attitude of Sega games. That is an amazing game. I saw only a few minutes ago, but it's why did they don't approve that game?
Actually, Astropede was approved. It went into production. It was just incompetence of management. They were trying to. Sega was trying to do too many things at once with not enough people. I think go back and check. I think at the time STI was trying to do 5 games, and they finally realized after about a year, oh, we can't do that. So they canceled a bunch of them and just went down to like, I can't remember which ones. And so so Astropede. Yeah, that's
more levels, please. That the first level is amazing, but more levels because the character is beautiful.
Yeah, I love the little. I know the game, the concept with the little train. Your power ups are the pods, and it was originally. So say you guys may already know this. Originally, that was supposed to take place in the Sonic universe. So he was supposed to be one of the little badniks. But he and Sonic had become friends. And I think my original story, and I'm not sure if I put this out before. The original story was Robotnik is doing some crazy experiment, and the Chaos Jewels blow up, and it's killing him because there's this chaos dust scattered through his body. So so Sonic decides to rescue Robotnik, and he gets Astropede to go down and run through inside Robotnik and collect all this contamination, all this chaos dust to save Robotnik. And that was the game that I pitched at Sega originally, and they loved the idea of the Centipede type character, but they didn't want it in the Sonic universe, and so I had to come up with another story. And that story always kind of sucked. I was never happy with that story. There was definitely be some gameplay issues that we had to deal with once we got further along on that.
But in the 90s, there is a story or no story. What was the gameplay? The gameplay was it's wonderful.
Well, yes, I'm trying to remember the second version.
Like he's collecting weapons or something.
There's the train. So those pods, those would have your power ups. They could be offensive. They could be rocket launchers or machine guns, or they could be defensive. They could be spikes or shields or extra engines, so you could go faster. And so you could collect those up as you pick those up. And a lot of your enemies would have those. So sometimes when you shoot enemies, that pod would drop and you could pick it up. I don't remember what the actual. I think in the new version of the story, it was some kid's dog was sick, and you had this thing was going down into his kid's dog to get radioactive particles or something. I don't remember what the story was there. It was bad. Because that prototype is real quick, real dirty. We only had probably just a few weeks to do it. That's why the artwork in it is actually what I thought was the unused artwork from Hidden Palace Zone. Because Hidden Palace was cut from Sonic 2, and had all this artwork ready. It's still some of my favorite artwork I've ever done for a video game. And it was just sitting there. I'm like, well, I'm gonna leave. That's a month's worth of work right there, and we can just use that. And I had to make a few extra pieces. So yeah, so that's there. But that was done really quickly. It's really buggy. and glitchy, but it gives you an idea of what the gameplay was possibly going to be. I actually have the code for it, and I've been talking to a couple different people, and the programmer, Ken Ross, and is it Ross, or am I getting that mixed up with Brenda? Ken
Ross?
Ken Ross. My brain's going blank here. Ken, whatever your name is it Ross?
Yeah, it's Ken or Rose or Ross. I don't know.
I've been talking to, I've been swapping emails and to try and decide, do we want to try and do something with it? Do we want to hand it off to somebody, see if they can, go through the legal hassles you'd have to go through with Sega if there is any, and try and finish it somehow, or try and do an official release of just what it is, or do we just dump it on the internet?
If you finish the game, I'll buy the game.
See, I would love to finish it. There's no way I have the whatever it takes now to finish it. I would love to see it finished, and I'd love to have some input on whoever's going to finish it. Because the concept, I still love that concept where the pods are your power-ups and you're zooming through worlds. And
with the scenario of a hidden palace, of course.
Maybe, yeah.
So...
about, again, with Treasure Tales, and I was trying to find some evidence that it was a gameplay. I'm pretty sure it's not, but I had some theories, and I would like to share with you. And if you say, maybe if you say, no, that's not how we did it, or that was just in the design.
If I can remember. I could love, yeah. Hopefully anything you say will jog my memory. And I can
maybe. But when you shared those images, someone put the screens side by side, and it was like a whole level, a little, they connected. Even if you were in a premature in the game doing the design only, you should present some sequences of the screens to be more
show gameplay, yeah. So I mean, because there was it's been a while since I've looked at the actual image, but there was the springboard, and then there was the springboard. You'd go out and you'd have to pick the right springboard to bounce to the right platform over the fire to get to the one that had the button to turn off the fire, so you could get down to the tunnel that was hidden underneath the fire.
Right.
If I remember, and some of the little tiles break.
Okay.
It's been a while since I looked at that. Because at that point, I was not the game designer, but I kind of was, as just coming up with concepts.
Okay.
I believe all we were told is that Sega wanted a Tales game.
Okay.
And I can't remember if they recommended the isometric view, the 3/4 view, or where that came from. I don't remember. But I remember working on the little gameplay there of just it's only like 3 screens.
Yes.
There's 3 or 4 screens that show him jumping, from the different squares
and that screen where the fire and the water is. Sometimes Tails is a little. It's on the platform, and the whole camera is up. So it was you had more design than you were showing. You basically create a level, but it's not playable. But it has a lot of content, even if it's not shown.
We want to look real. We want to look real.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure those were put together to show Sega of here's what we want the game to look like.
Okay.
Sega executives.
And there's a big evidence that it's just a screen because Tails is always on the same position.
And you can it's the same thing on some of the. So I think they're. Some of the hidden palace zones that ended up being screenshots for hidden palace zones that ended up in the early magazine publishers were faked. I took artwork and click. And
okay.
There it is, because he's not in the right position.
Yeah.
That would be on me doing it. Well, this looks pretty. It looks nice here, but that's not. He's here in the game. He's in the middle in the game.
So about Treasure Tales, we're done. You can open another one. You can open another present if you want.
Oh.
Sorry if my English is not.
Oh no, I used to speak a little Portuguese.
Really? Why?
Well,
Really?
so I was supposed to go. I was supposed to go to Brazil for a little while, and so we learned Portuguese, or very quickly learned a little Portuguese, and then we couldn't get our visas, and so we ended up in Bolivia. So my Spanish. By the time I learned Spanish, it had an American, Portuguese, an American, Brazilian. And then I come back to American. So my Spanish was American, Portuguese, Bolivian Spanish, and then I was in Texas for a while. And the Spanish in Texas is this weird. It's called Spanglish or Tex-Mex. It's this English Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mario is a craftsman of Sega games.
So when I was watching you do the Sega controller, I thought it was just going to be, here's a pretty little thing to sit on the shelf, and then all of a sudden you're playing with it. I went, that's incredible.
That was not easy.
You got.
It's something unique. It's only yours.
It's unique.
So I gotta keep switching my glasses back and forth. I need to get real glasses.
I have to say that that needs to go to the oven, so the paint it sticks. And I finished painting. I put it on the oven, and when I was looking to his face, and it's missing something. And it was really missing something. It was the antennas. It's so awkward without the antennas. So I have to paint it again and put it on the oven again. So that's Astropede. We talk about, I think, everything about Astropede. It was 14 months you were working on
something
that.
Like that, yeah.
Damn,
From the initial pitch of the idea to them going, I'm trying to think. I think they pulled me off of it to work on Spinball. It was either Spinball or Comix Zone.
I think it's Comix Zone.
I think it's Comix Zone as well. I've got those dates all written down because I went through my journals. It all blurs together.
Yes.
Craig, you did the first level of Sonic Spinball, right?
Yes. So, which actually, if you look at that, if you take the artwork from Hidden Palace Zone,
Yes.
take the artwork from Hidden Palace Zone, and you take the rock structures from Spinball from that first case, they're the same rocks.
Oh,
it's
amazing.
The same pattern. I just smoothed them out, and put vines and goo on them, but it's the same pattern.
But
I never realized.
It's completely different. It's interesting.
So it looks very different, but one of the reasons I really liked the artwork for Hidden Palace Zone is one of the things that was very important to me when I was doing the Genesis artwork was to try to not make it look just stamp, like wallpaper, where you see the pattern, and that's really hard because you're limited to so many textures and your memory is so limited. And so it's very easy to just go stamp. And I really wanted to not, and so I'm really happy with Hidden Palace Zone because most of the time you don't get that wallpaper stamp look because it's a very complex rock pattern that fits into itself.
Yeah.
And so I use that same one on Hidden Palace. In fact, if you watch, I don't know if you've seen the video I have, it has what would have been one of the real levels for Astropede. It's these green bubbly rock or purple and blue rocks.
Yeah.
Same pattern.
Oh.
I'm using that same foundation because I
Interesting.
really was happy with it and changed it up so it doesn't look like the same thing. But
Okay. It was the first level, but it was supposed to be the second level, right?
it was supposed to be the second level, and then because Brenda Ross, she did two levels for Sonic 2 that were cut.
Really? Damn.
She did.
I think it was desert, right?
She did a desert level and a tree level, like a forest level.
Okay.
Those were both cut. And although I think a lot of that desert level ended up being kind of reworked and used in the other games, but not by Brenda. And then she did the was supposed to do the first level, this water cave level in Spinball, and I don't remember why, if it was memory or time or both, got cut.
Okay.
So yeah, she really got shafted. It's all. Well, see, that's one of the reasons I left Sega is you just had to expect about 40%, at least 40% of your work would be cut. It could be finished work, and it was cut. And I'm very fortunate that about half of my work actually ended up being shipping off in games. But I had friends at Sega that worked for like 2 years. Nothing they did went out the door. And
that doesn't make logic, even in a.
It just comes down to bad planning and kind of your eyes being bigger than your stomach. We can do it all.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I always really liked about Insomniac. Is when I went down to LA to Insomniac, is we'd have these big plans, but early on you'd go, no. Okay, here, this is what we can do. We can actually, and then even then, if you get a little further in and go, oh no, so you'd start things, but we wouldn't, Insomniac, we wouldn't get very far.
Okay. And
go, nope, we've got to cut that. And so it was like 10% of your work or less that you did got cut.
Nice.
It just makes more sense, and it's much better for your heart and your brain.
Of course, yes.
Not have so much work wasted. But yeah, so they ended up taking. They wanted me to take the bottom half of my toxic level and make it water, and it's just like not that long ago. I remember, because if you were to ask me not that long ago, that wasn't hard. It wasn't a big deal. And once again, I was reading through my journal. Oh no, man, I was miserable. I hated it. It was so much work.
Yeah.
Just change those bottom ones and make it all, because that's all new textures. That it's not just painting them; they've got to fit into memory.
Yes.
And all that stuff. And so, yeah, looking back at my journals, I was like, I can't do this. This isn't going to work. And,
you were talking about leaving Sega. I believe this was the final drop for you.
I actually did a little work on that cover.
Yeah, you told me that you painted this, right?
But so did you work on the game? Did you work on the game, the Comic Zone game?
Yeah, all I really did on that one, so I did the color work on the cover. Peter actually did the black, the ink work. All I really did on Comic Zone was cleaning up some animations and coloring the animations. But that really wasn't like painting art. It literally was click an area and it turns green, and click this area and it turns green, and then I did not enjoy it.
Yeah, not creative,
there was no creative about it.
As a fan of comics and video games, it's a truly amazing game.
It's the other guys on the team. Brains are gone. It's Adrian was the programmer, and I just said his name. The lead designer did all the artwork on it. Both of them are really awesome to work with, and so the concept of the game was awesome. My only real complaint on the game is it's way too hard. It's the only game I ever worked on that I never finished. Because I have things like, well, if I'm working on a game, I have to have finished it 100%. That's the only one I never finished it. I just couldn't. It was too hard.
It's hard. But
I just know a friend of mine that can end that game.
He's one of few. He's
one of few. Really.
Few.
You said that you painted this, right?
Yeah.
And
so
you told me that
Peter. There's his name, Peter. Yeah. So yeah, he just gave me the black and white line artwork.
Okay.
And it was actually painted with it was airbrush, but not paint. It was literally a little felt. You take a felt pen and you put it in a little thing that blows air across the tip of the felt pen. So you're painting with felt pen with like you're painting with like an airbrush, but it's with a felt pen. So it's really fun. It's very simple. I would just do it on my desk. I didn't have to worry about paint and that. It's just right there at my desk. So
yeah, really, in your desk?
Yeah.
There was no painting the walls and.
No, as I said, that's the nice thing with these little air jet.
It's focused. Okay.
It's just right there. There's no paint. There's no cleanup. You change colors. You just take the pen out and put a new pen in.
And how big was the original paper? Okay.
Probably about like that.
Okay.
Well, another trick I started doing with these is I would, because I don't know if you guys know much about airbrushing. So many times when you're airbrushing, you have to mask off everything. You paint, you cover everything with tape and paper.
Okay.
So what you want to paint is showing, and you paint that, and then you take all the tape off. You cover what you painted. It's a very tedious process.
Yes.
Or you go freehand, but the mask is very tedious. And went up and saw there's a 70s artist named Roger Dean that did a lot of album covers and book covers and posters back in the 70s. And we went up to when I was at Sega. We went up to see an exhibition he had at one of the little shows, galleries up there, and we got to see his paintings. And his paintings, he would like do a pencil draw or painting on a little piece of paper and then cut that out and stick it on the other painting. They were just stuff glued on.
Okay.
So it's not one painting, it's stuff just glued. And that gave me an idea. So like for that, the cover of Comic Zone is I made a bunch of copies of the drawing.
Okay.
And like if I'm going to do the vest, I would just paint the vest and then cut it out and glue it on another piece of paper.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't mask anything. I'd just paint his legs, cut out his legs, so I could do each color.
Okay.
And just
yes,
that's a jigsaw puzzle.
Because it's very detailed. It's awesome.
So
very.
It was a quick, easy way to do it. I mean, now you just do it all on the computer. Because it's
but there are covers.
Photoshop
there
now.
are Mega Drive covers that are truly amazing because of that.
So yes. So you can open another one.
Okay, this one's heavy.
Okay, so that before you open, it's from my brother.
Okay.
Nothing about video games. We can say that he was he had a full-time job being a blacksmith.
Okay.
And I think you like a little bit of medieval fairs, right?
Oh, I love the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he done some iron work. He has a YouTube page and Instagram. It's brother to brother knives and iron work.
No, that's awesome.
It was made by him.
Well, give him a huge thank you for me.
Okay. I wanted to give you some cloak pin, something to
I was just looking at this because I'm wanting. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of my Renaissance armor. So I've got
one or two, yeah.
Whole black leather plate armor.
Yeah.
But I'm wanting to rework it and do something more fun with it. And I'm looking at this just kind of thinking.
Yeah,
so I can open the bottles, right? Have it just hanging right here, and so I can open up the bottles there.
With a chain or something.
Yeah, just have a chain. Actually, I love that. Because I think that's where it's gonna. I've got the chain comes around here and around the couple. Right there. That'd be awesome.
Now my brother is we can say that it's a big vacation he's not doing right now, but when he starts to do again, if you want a cloak pin, of course I will give you one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and the last one.
I see a little shadow of somebody in there. I don't know if you see a little somebody in there.
Yes.
It's Spyro.
It's I gave you mugs. You need a coaster to put the mugs. I love woodwork, and I thought Spyro with Pyro would be nice.
Absolutely. When it's Well, because I actually drew because I don't know if you guys have heard the original game I pitched before you got to be the dragon is very different than the game we all know as Spyro. I would love to play. I would still love to have someone make the game I pitched. I would still love to play it. It wouldn't have been the worldwide hit that Spyro is, because it would have been a much more narrow group of people playing it. Because that game you would start as a baby, you'd hatch and be a hatchling, and each level you would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally you're using flames and magic and all sorts of crazy kind of Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings kind of dragon, and in a more not realistic but a more stylized world, but not cute.
Okay.
And Mark Cerny made 2 suggestions when we pitched it to him. Was keep the dragon the same age, because sequels are going to be easier. I'm like, oh, yeah, never thought about doing 2 games. Okay, keep them the same age, and keep it cute, keep it family friendly, because by the time you guys are done with this, in 2 years, in the 2 years it'll take you to make this game, the average age of the PlayStation user is going to come down a couple of years. And so you're going to have younger kids playing it. We went, okay. And then we ended up being a little cuter than we had planned and hitting a little younger than we planned. But that was perfect.
Yeah.
Because we weren't so cute that people didn't, guys didn't want to, like, oh, it's too cute. That's a kiddie game. And yet the girlfriends played it. Yeah. Little kids loved it. And the big one for me was moms and dads played it. Because every little kid out there is like, Mom, Dad, come watch me play, or come play with me. And
yes,
it's amazing game. Spyro is amazing game.
It crossed the boundaries. You had everybody. I used to answer the fan mail, and I don't know how many letters I got from parents saying, thank you for making this game. We played as a family. My son or my daughter is stuck on this level. Do you have any hints? And at the bottom of the letter would be, and by the way, I'm stuck on this level. Can you help me? And I remember, how many times you get parents going, "Oh, can you help me out? I'm stuck." And I had one parent, in kind of an angry tone at the bottom. You guys there's no one to tell me to put the controller down at 1 o'clock in the morning. So
my mom only played Tetris.
Well, see, that's
But still about Spyro, we want to know what you think, what Craig thinks about Skylanders.
Mixed feelings. Mixed.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about them. I'd been out of the industry, and I was at a department store here, looking for something. I turned down this aisle, and just both sides of the aisle are this little purple dragon, and I see the name Spyro, and I'm like, it's been 10 years. What's going on? How many? And I'm looking, and it's like, and there's Spyro, but it's like he's ugly. It's like someone just beating with a stick. He's all lumpy, gross. True. And I'm just like, what? But at the same time, it was Spyro. Here's all this merchandise. There's lunch pails and blankets and T-shirts and bedspreads. All the stuff we wanted when we were making Spyro and didn't get. And so, while I think they made him really ugly, it introduced Spyro to a whole new generation of kids. And I don't know. And now you've got the Reignited series, where they redid it, and. Once again, here we are 20 years later, 25 years later, a little over 20 years later, talking about this little dragon. And I think the reason we are is because Skylanders. If they hadn't done Skylanders,
it gave a boost.
And give it that boost just at the right time.
Yeah.
And introduce a whole new thing.
So the first two ones were the best ones.
That's if I had my favorite's if I had to pick between the first and the second, it's probably the second.
Yes.
But mostly because I think that's true with a lot of things. Like Sonic 2 is, I think, a little better game than Sonic 1. Not for any great reason. It's just that Sonic 2 is kind of the game they wanted to make the first time. Spyro 2 is definitely the game we wanted to make the first time, but you run out of time. You know, because Spyro was supposed to swim in Spyro 1. And it wasn't until we're getting really close to the deadline. And Al Hastings, the programmer, goes, because all the animations were done, and we didn't have any levels that were swimming based, but we had some hidden stuff that you would find by swimming. And Al comes back and goes, I don't have time. We can't do the swimming. We're like, oh, okay, well, one, we got a dragon that can't swim. It's like, okay. It's like, oh, crap, we got to go back and tear all this stuff out because we've got all these hidden things that you swim to, and now we got to make water dangerous somehow. Right. And so, yeah, the second time around, you've honed your skills a little bit. But the first two.
Okay.
Spyro's near and dear to my heart. That's of all the games I've worked on, and you guys have probably heard me say this, but if I wasn't at Sega, somebody else would have done the artwork for Sonic 2 and Spinball and these other games. And if I wasn't at Insomniac when I was, there would be no Little Purple Dragon.
But Craig, Kid Chameleon was it the same?
Huh?
Was it for you? Was it for you? The Kid Chameleon was it the same?
Kid Chameleon for me. But it would still exist. Now I can't argue. I would love to have a crystal ball and go, okay, Kid Chameleon, would it have been better or would it not have been as good because I didn't do it? Or Sonic 2, you know, would Oil Ocean Hidden Palace been better or not as good? But that would have been done. It still would have happened. There would be no Spyro. Insomniac, I mean, the other games that were pitched, the other ideas were an off-road racing game, I believe an alien invasion game, which I think probably eventually became Resistance on the PS3. I can't remember what Al Hastings pitched. Yeah, I've worked with some awesome people.
Spyro is purple, but I painted a little green. Why?
Okay, so yes. Well, he was originally green.
Okay.
And as I say, on my YouTube channel, if you look, there is the video there of because we were running around with Spyro. When that's another thing is we realized Spyro was going to be a fun game very early on. Literally before we had it, all we had was Spyro running around. It was just a flat green plane with maybe a grass texture on it, and you could spend 10 or 15, 20 minutes just running around.
Yeah, just exploring, yeah.
Just chasing your tail. It's fun just running in circles. Yeah. And we're like, we don't even have to make a game. This is fun. And so, but he was green because, you know, my dragons are green. And pretty early on, after we got a couple levels built, or maybe even just after the first one, we realized, oh, you're running around on green grass a lot of the time, and you got a green dragon on green grass. Plus, there was Croc, Gex, Yoshi. So you had 3 other mascot characters that were reptilian that were green. Like, okay, we got to do something different. Yeah. And so I did up a videotape of Spyro in about a dozen different colors, and showed that we sat down and watched all those, and we chose purple as the best color for him. That I still have that videotape. Yes. I need to find somebody that has the equipment to really go frame by frame and clean that up, because it's a 25-year-old VHS. Yes. It's all staticky and poppy and jumpy, and once again, to anybody working on stuff out there, your stuff. This videotape, the first minute or two of it, the first several colors and the original green that we had him as, got overwritten by another animation test. Because here's a videotape, we'll just use that one. Yeah. I'm not thinking about saving anything. It's
Unfortunately, we don't have that information. But also there's that 90s mystic. It's interesting having in a VHS. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
cool.
Oh, there's.
I searched something about Spyro and something appeared. I don't know if this is true. Did you put your son's name in the castle, like encrypted?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And the I don't know, the people who approved the game knew this, or it was like you
I don't.
tried to.
Well, I hid it in there. Well, because it's in the summer. My brain's going blank as well. It was the big white castle in one of the hub worlds, the summer hub world on Spyro 2. And there's this intricate scroll work in the white stone. There's just lacy scroll work. But I wrote out Brian, which is my son's name, in the script. And so you have to kind of look at it.
Yes, yes, it's not.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Because I knew if it was too obvious, they'd ask me to take it out. So Easter eggs are fun. There's Easter eggs all over in the games, but they need to be hidden.
Yeah.
The interesting one with that one is later on, a few months into the game. In fact, I think I'm working on one of the last levels, and Oliver Wade, who is the director of the animation department, comes up to me, and he points out that he'd seen the Brian.
Oops.
And he goes, well, my son's name is Brian, and both of them are spelled with a Y, so Bryan.
Okay.
He goes, my son's name is Brian with a Y. And I'd love to tell him, but I can't because I have a daughter named Brenda. So could you hide Brenda someplace in there? And I go, yeah, I could definitely do that. And so now Brenda is because that Brian actually took me longer than it should have to carve and come up with the design. So it's later in the game. It's a big black cat with black stonework. This very with night skies and snow, and I don't remember which level it was but there's these big wooden doors swing out, and there's gold.
Okay.
Work at the top, and it says Brenda. Now that one, I literally just kind of think I just wrote Brenda in it, and made it 3-dimensional.
Okay.
But that way, Oliver could say, "Hey, look, Brian and Brenda, your names are in the game." So so I hid his name in there. I think he was like 8 at the time. He was like 8 years old when I made that game.
Okay. So, and in Sonic 2, in a alternative universe, there would be no Tails. It would be a turtle.
Yes. Little turtle named Boomer or Boomy.
Yeah.
Because they just kind of put the word out. Hey, we need a second character. We need a player number 2.
Okay.
And so my idea was, let me do the opposite of Spyro of Sonic. Sonic's fast, so we'll do a little turtle. I remember doing the quick ideas about this episode. Little turtle, so he's slow.
Yeah.
But then what's his power? And so my idea was he's kind of slow, but he can drop over and he's jet powered. So he pulls his legs in and has jet thrusters. So he can keep up with Sonic if he needs to.
Yeah.
And then, but the real benefit of him gameplay wise, and this would have completely changed the game. It would be, the game dynamics, the 2-player dynamics, is Sonic would jump and stand on top of this little turtle character, and so Sonic could fly. So you fly over hazards, over spikes, over lava, and over stuff. But the interesting one on that is, if you look online, there's all sorts of fan, because I finally put out those little thumbnail, the couple sketches I did of him, not within the last year or so, last year or two. There's fan art for that little guy. Once again, it's just
I used it for that animation.
Yes. Well, no, that's the other one. Got to be careful what you look for sometimes. Was I can't remember. I was looking for either something for Sonic or something for Spyro, and this web search, Google search popped up, and there's all this Spyro and Sonic stuff together.
Oh.
So either Spyro and Sonic, Spyro versus Sonic, or Spyro and they're fighting each other, or Spyro and Sonic and they're doing things together. It just, I don't. It's just.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's just too much. It's.
And Tails basically was created for Sonic. There was no game that it was specifically.
That was Yamaguchi. And I remember, it was like, I remember liking my little turtle character, my little Broomy, and then I saw Tails. I was like, no, I want my turtle. Because I can't even imagine how exciting that would be to have had to be the character. But Tails is awesome. And
there were another characters that someone teaches.
Not that I can. I'm sure there were. There were. Not that I can remember.
There were meetings. There were a lot of people watching that, or just.
So it was a good sized team. I'm trying to think because there was at least 3 American artists. There was myself, Brenda Ross, and Tom Payne. And I think those were the only 3 artists, environment artists. And then I know there were some American programmers and some American designers working on it as well. So yes, I'm sure there were other ideas pitched because the call just kind of went, "Hey, we need another character for player 2 because Sonic 2 is going to have a 2-player option."
Yeah.
Which I remember being lots of discussions about how are you going to do that? Because it's so fast. There's no way you can barely keep track of 1 character on screen. How are you ever going to make that work with 2?
Yeah. Developers were excited for that. So about the video games that you worked on, for me, it's done. Pedro, do you have more questions?
Well, I don't know if I want to ask this question, but I was to work with Yuji Naka.
He very talented, obviously, incredible programmer. Needs to work on his people skills. Needs to work on his humility a little bit. I'm personally still upset at him because I was supposed to be one of the lead artists on Sonic 3. And that it came down to Naka said that he didn't. Well, Naka was always blackmailing Sega. Because Sonic 1 in Japan was finished, and Naka didn't like the way he was being treated by Sega, and so he quit, had quit, or was threatening to quit. I think he'd actually quit.
Okay.
And Sega realized, we need Sonic 2. Like, oh crap! Well, we got Yasuhara is in America already, working at STI, and but Naka didn't want to do it. But luckily, Mark Cerny was friends with Naka. He'd met Naka when Mark was working in Japan and became friends with Naka. And so he's told Naka, "Hey, come to America, work on Sonic 2. You won't be working with Sega directly. I'll be between you and Sega. And here's a big bag of money." like $2 million or something like that. Come work for me, not Sega. So that's how we got Naka in America to do Sonic 2. And but then he didn't like speaking English. He didn't have any respect for the American artists or American programmers. And so when it came time to Sonic 3, my understanding is like, okay, well, I'm only going to do Sonic 3 if I have an all-Japanese team, and we have our own offices and our own card keys and we're completely separate from all the Americans.
Yeah, it's just a place. So,
of course, Sega has to give in to him because he's Naka and the programmer, and so I was bummed because at that point I was really looking forward to working on more Sonic. And I have to say, I'm a little embarrassed by this. I've never really played Sonic 3 or anything after Sonic 2. it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I go through and I look at it now, and then the artwork in Sonic 3, some of them are beautiful. Other levels, you know, the hidden palace zone in Sonic 3 is like
just the name.
Just the name, and,
and the big emerald.
It's just repetitive stamp, stamp, stamp.
Yeah.
A lot of that in Sonic 3. It's just really, the artwork is on some of the levels was not up to par. But they were also working on a wicked tight schedule. So
in Sonic 2 in Sonic 2 you created that big emerald in Hidden Palace Zone. That it's just a block, right? It's just something to grow. But in Sonic 3 there's a big emerald.
It was just supposed to be. It was just a cork. It was just a breakable object, and then it got cut because it got hidden, lost. And so when it started showing up, there's all this. He's smashing the Chaos Emerald, the Master Emerald, and I would love to know, Yasuharu, how much the whole the whole Chaos Emerald thing and that whole story and that whole mythology, when and how it developed.
Do you think they stole your idea? They saw that big emerald and that's
maybe there's definitely some crossover there, because there definitely wasn't any big Master Emerald when we were doing Sonic 2.
Right.
Because Yasuharu no, you can't do that. Because there's going to be this big emerald that everyone's trying to get, so you can't have them, you can't use, you got to come up with something else as a cork. And so there definitely was not a, Master Emerald yet.
And how was it to work with Mark Cerny?
I loved working with Mark. Now, I have to say, from my experience, you either loved working with Mark or you hated working with Mark. he's another, he can be very difficult to work with. And not him. People may say that about Naka now that I think about it. But for Mark, he's one of the few people. If he called right now, I would go back to the industry and work with him. Because he can be very difficult to work with, but he's really good at what he does. He kind of has this superpower of being able to look ahead and go, here's what's going to be needed. Here's what's going to be hot. Here's, he can look. Well, he looked at my little dragon game, which could have been an awesome game, and sold a couple 100,000 copies. But he looked at it and says, "Here, make these two changes," and it went from this nice little niche game to a worldwide bestseller, 5th best-selling, game on the PlayStation 1, because Mark made 2 suggestions. And he also helped game design, but there's those 2 suggestions is what put it over the top. And so, I really enjoyed working with him. I really enjoyed working with him, and would love to again. So I used to stay in touch with him. I haven't talked to him in 15 years, probably.
So how was your creative process? Did you need music? Did you need silence? Did you need to focus? Did you need to sleep over?
For me, it was almost always listening to music, and I found instrumental stuff. So a lot of movie soundtracks.
Okay.
And a lot of just instrumental kind of new age stuff. Artists like Vangelis, Jean-Marc Aujar, Tangerine Dream, but a lot of movie soundtracks. And just nonstop, listening to music. Usually, when I'm drawing, back to your question of paper, pencil, or digital, that was a huge shift when I started making games. More when we started 3D. So when I came down with Insomniac, and it wasn't just pixel art, where you're actually in Photoshop painting. And you're not, like in the Genesis, okay, you've got these 8 little colors. You got to use them. Click, 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 dot, 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 dot. Disruptor, we're using Photoshop, and you're just painting.
Okay.
And there was this disconnect in my brain of the difference between digital art and traditional art. And there's something very sterile about the digital art. And there's no smell, there's no texture. I'm used to getting paint on my shoes and paint on, brushing my brush off on my jacket.
Oh,
and there's none of that. And the other thing is if I do a painting or a drawing, there's one. That it's unique. There's one of those in the whole universe. There's just one of those. On your computer art, it doesn't really even exist anywhere. It's ones and zeros. It's in the ether somewhere. It doesn't really exist anywhere. And if it does exist, there's a million copies of it. And so as an artist, there was this weird trying to get my brain wrapped around that. But then the 3D games started, and I realized, oh yeah, because it was much like I've done a couple of paintings where I would love to be able to step into the painting. I'd love to see what's behind that rock, what's on the other side of that hill.
Right.
You can't because it's a two-dimensional painting.
Yeah.
Spyro, what's behind that rock? Well, let's go see. And you can go look, and it's not only do I get to go see, it's those millions of people we were talking about all get to go see. And so that trade-off between it's not unique, it doesn't really exist anywhere, and literally millions of people get to experience it.
Okay.
So it's very different.
Yes.
And there's not a bit. They're just different. There's not one's not better, one's not worse. They're just different now in my mind. And so.
And about pixel art, I am trying to make an old game for NES, and I have to say that I love and hate pixel art because it's very difficult to create. A circle. We have big pixels and we need more colors and stuff. But for example, creating an animation, I copy the frame, I change some pixels, and it's perfect. So, what do you think about pixel art? Do you like it? Is it frustrating?
I remember it was wonderful to be able to not have to worry about pixels anymore. But for the reason you just pointed out, it's beautiful and it's very enjoyable. And the other difference is I can remember I could look at Kid Chameleon and say literally every pixel you're looking at is mine. I have touched every pixel on that screen. And because on Kid Chameleon, because I did about a third of the characters, about half the enemies, and about and like all the little screen stuff and all the blocks were all mine. And so there could be a screen where literally everything on there was me putting a pixel in place. And even on Sonic Sonic, most of those pixels I've touched all those pixels. You throw up a Spyro game, and there's a lot more people working on it. There's so much more. So it's like, okay, well, this is mine and that's mine.
Okay.
Just from a very personal, egocentric kind of point of view. It's like, well, that's mine, that's mine. Oh, yeah, I also did all the skies in Spyro, which was something that the first time they handed it to me, I don't want to do these. Oh, these are miserable. And they really were. They were horrible to work on. And they became one of my favorite things to do. Okay. And so as they got to be more and more fun, you could do more and more. But yeah, there's a part of me that definitely misses that pixel thing. In fact, I've been wanting to sit down with the Lego and use Lego just to make a little static of Kid Chameleon, of the characters.
Interesting.
Just out of Lego.
Very nice.
I got boxes of loose Lego that I could definitely do that if I just get off my butt and do it.
And is it true that you really had to work to create your art thinking in the old TVs? Like you tested on the TV, oh no, it's blurred, I need to change, or if the pixel art was perfect, you had your monitor here that you're doing everything pixel. That's a monitor, so it's crisp, perfect little squares. But you had to see it on a television. Okay.
Because in order to get those extra colors, if you got 8 colors and one of them's not green, but you've got blue and yellow, you can crisscross your blues and yellows to get a green.
Wow.
Get your gradations. But if you look at that on a monitor, it's blue and green dots.
Okay.
You look at it on the CTR on the old televisions, it's this funky green. I'd be curious. Yeah, these old games on the new TVs, because you don't have that. Well, that's one of the colors when we were testing what color to do Spyro. He was awesome. This kind of dark red color. He was beautiful, but reds on the old televisions just you lose all the detail. So
okay.
Yeah, no, there's a part of me definitely misses the pixel art. Somewhere I would love to have it all now. I mean, even if it's just to look at. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can get online and find where people have ripped it off the carts so you can get stuff. But there is so much. I'm sure there's a landfill out in the middle of somewhere that's got a box of 3 1/4-inch floppy disks with all that artwork.
Yeah, that would be awesome. How was the process of transferring the paper to pixels?
There wasn't a lot.
Just looking to the paper and.
Yeah, because I remember the ones I'm thinking of are the characters for Kid Chameleon specifically. So I remember drawing up their characters in paper.
Okay.
But that would just be like maybe like a side view and a front view, if even that. Maybe just a simple little 3/4 view. I remember Brenda Ross came up with this great little kind of little shape that was like a little naked figure, a little mannequin. It's like, oh, that's perfect. So I just used that and just draw over. It's like, well, here's the boots and here's the helmet, and because the proportions were nice and he was cute. Like Hidden Palace, I don't know if I did like many actual drawing on it.
Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of drawing for the stuff on on Sonic that I remember. Now for like Spyro, we do 3 or 4 drawings or handful of drawings of the basic, whatever the architecture or whatever the general feel of the worlds would be, and then base everything off of that. So there was more. So I have more drawings from my work on Spyro, Ratchet and Clank, because that had more pencil concept sketching and design work that was done on paper first versus just sitting on the computer. I must have done some for Spyro or Sonic. I don't have any of it. I've got like 2 or 3 pages in an old sketchbook that are more just kind of thumbnail idea stuff and not actual concept.
Okay. How can a game be created with so many people? I'm thinking in Sonic 2, how can the levels work together? It's a Sonic universe, and you created one level, the other created another level. And
I remember working on, what game was it? This didn't really hit me until we were doing like Disruptor or Spyro, was how hard it was to be consistent from that communication. All these different people doing things simultaneously, it all has to be together, and we're all we're all in the same building. We're all across the hall or literally in the same room with each other, and it's still hard to get everything to work. And I remember thinking, how do movies do it? You've got. You go back to Star Wars. So you got some guys building models in California that need to match a set in Tunisia,
right? That
need to match a soundstage in England, and these all have to look the same. How? So that's where your people like Mark Cerny and the producers that really know their stuff, and the lead people are really tracking and following all this. And that's where, if you don't have that, games die. Astropede didn't have that. I think they kind of wanted me to be that, and I'm a horrible manager. And it's
Craig, did you come up with the name Hidden Palace? It's the name.
I think that came from Yasuhara. I think that was Yasuhara's.
Because it is truly hidden.
It was truly it was the perfect name for a level that got cut from the game. Yeah.
Yes.
It's his fault for being hidden. Developers looked at it. Oh, I'm going to hide it. I'm not going to put outside.
It boggles my mind that things this complex, and the teams just get bigger and bigger. Spyro was done with 10 to 12 people. Most of us sharing like 2 offices next to each other. When I left Insomniac, I had like 10 people just under me, and then the art department was like, I don't know, 30 people with the environment artists, if you include all of everybody. And it became huge. That's a skill. That's truly a skill, is being able to keep that kind of thing organized and running, and not, like Sega did for years, losing 40% of the work because it was wasted because you didn't plan it out properly.
True.
And developers, did you ever felt that your creativity was slowed down by developers? Like, I want to create this, and they started speaking in English, but a completely different language, like, the algorithm for that is impossible, or the memory.
Programming, that's black magic, that's voodoo, I don't understand that at all. I'm trying to think. Well, that was one of the joys of working at Insomniac, is Al Hastings there, the lead programmer. Very quiet. Very rarely spoke. In fact, he could be a little off-putting if you didn't know him, because someone would come in that didn't know him and ask a question, and he wouldn't answer. And they would stand there and wait. And wait. And they would get ready to ask it again. It's like, did he hear me? He's like, no, he's thinking.
Oh.
All of us, most of us, I'm thinking how I'm going to answer. As you're asking the question, I'm already thinking of what I'm going to say. Yeah. No, you'd talk and he would
processing.
And so you learned when he did talk, you listened, because he thought it through. And so that one of the enjoyable things is you'd throw out these ideas and he'd go, and more often than not he'd go, well, we could do that.
And he thought in the whole level,
not just that knee jerk. That's too complicated. No, we can't do that. It's like, and if he did say no, you could take it. That's the answer is really no. He's just not. He's not being lazy.
Okay.
He's honestly saying no. That's not possible. Of course, then sometimes he'd come back a day or two later. Oh, here it is. It is possible, and here it is.
And Christmas and video games will be together forever. But did you felt like a lot of video games were cancelled because it's not in time for Christmas, so forget? And was it hard? I
don't know about possibly canceled. Definitely not as good as they could have been, should have been, because they got rushed. Hidden Palace Zone would be in Sonic 2 if they'd had another few weeks to finish the game.
Right.
Because it was done, it just wasn't, the programming wasn't finished. And it hadn't been, and so I think a lot of games were damaged, and were not as good as they could have been because of that. We've got to have it out by Christmas. Right. That's not as much of a thing now. I haven't been in the industry, so I don't know how much of a crush it is come summertime, because you got to have the games ready, done by August, so they can get to manufacturing. Everything's digital now, so there is no manufacturing.
Right.
So, but no, there was a lot of harm done by that crunching that schedule. Because if you missed Christmas, the game was it hurt your sales.
Yeah.
Dramatically.
Yeah,
Because
there was.
you had to have for the American, you had to have them out in mid Thanksgiving or mid November, because there's Thanksgiving at the end of November, and in the States, that time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, between the end of November and the end of December, that's the sweet spot. You've got to be on the shelves. Your advertising has to be out there, and so yeah, I think a lot of harm. I mean, it is what it is. It had to be done, but a lot of good stuff got caught or lost or.
Okay. And last one for me, video games in general. Do you think that people are too addicted? Is too much childish, or is it?
It's not childish at all. I think that was one of the big changes that when I was making games, we were right in the middle of, is games going from something kids played to something young adults played to something adults played. And that's what a lot of the people who didn't like video games, who saw them as evil, would see these, I'll say R-rated games, for lack of a better word, with violence or whatever content. And like, oh, you're making these violent games for kids. Like, no, we're not making the violent games for the 8-year-olds. We're not making, Grand Theft Auto 3 for the 8-year-olds. We're making it for the 15 to 18-year-olds. Or the 20-year-olds or the 25-year-olds, because they're still playing games. They didn't stop. No one stopped. You got your toys, and kids kind of stop playing with certain toys at certain ages. Video games, that's not the case. But they don't want to keep playing the cute little Care Bear games and the rainbow games. They want, the adult. The problem is, the 8-year-old sees his older brother playing Grand Theft Auto, and he wants to play Grand Theft Auto. That's when Grand Theft Auto 3 first came out. I remember kind of going, because there were all these things in the U.S. Congress about trying to make legislation about rating the games, controlling the games, because they were too violent. And all of a sudden, out comes Grand Theft Auto, where you're stealing cars and you're picking up hookers and you're shooting people and you're running from the cops. And we're going, oh, we don't need this right now. But I'd never played it. And I was at a party and they were playing it. So I sat down to play it. And about 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I need to buy this game. Stopped on the way home, bought it. And that week was going to spend the weekend with my son, who was 10 at the time. And I'm like, okay, well, do I let my 10-year-old son play this? And I'm like, yeah. We spent 14 hours that weekend playing Grand Theft Auto 3. Never actually played the game. We just ran around. We were just exploring the city. There's a can you steal the fire engine? And we'd steal the fire engine. And there's games here, and we play the mini games. So it's not a childish thing. Are we doing it too much? I think people spend too much time glued to their phones, not just games.
Right.
I also know historically every generation has said that about the generation before them. Oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're this. Oh, we didn't do it that way. So new technology is always hard for the next generation to get. I am curious. It's down the road. I think our brain, we are overly saturated.
I'm always thinking about that guy in The Simpsons, that fellow that runs the comic shop.
Uh-huh.
And in the movie, his face, Apocalypse, he says, blessed time is the best times of my life to have these comics before me.
Yeah, because we're just so overloaded with information, and it makes me just curious of what it is. Psychologically, we've got so many people dealing with anxiety, serious anxiety issues, including me. That I'm curious, what is, yeah, 100 years from now, 50 years from now, we're going to look back and go, oh, it wasn't a problem. We're like, oh man, that really messed us up. Because we do spend, like, it's like where I'm at work now is I'll get on break and I'll go sit down and I'll want to like talk with my coworkers.
Yeah.
Everyone's on their phone.
Right.
And so, yeah, but I don't want to bash on it because, yeah, it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue.
Yes. Pedro, any questions?
No, not for me. It was an honor. It was a true honor to meet the person that made the best levels on the Mega Drive games. Yes, the best levels, truly.
Well, I mean, it means it. It's. This means so much to me. It really does.
I was thinking I'm going to make one thing, and then but I want to make this, and he deserves this. I will do everything. It came to my mind.
Well, because I left the industry in 2005, basically nervous breakdown, and afterwards I couldn't draw. I mean, even on my own, I lost the ability. I would sit down and draw, and my brain was just white. And just in the last year or two, I'm starting to get back to drawing and painting again.
Really? That much?
And a lot of it is because of guys like you guys contacting me and helping me get some of that confidence back, that I'm not a fake or not this or not that or not whatever, that I'm listening to people and realizing there are millions of people out there who like my work and want and I change lives. I talk to people where I'll mention, I had my boss at work, my direct supervisor. I took a bunch of artwork in early one day at work because we had this kind of like 15 minutes where you could share stuff with people, and so I signed up for it. And people knew I'd made video games, but I'm sitting there talking, and I get talking about Spyro, and his eyes just kind of get bigger. And he comes up to me afterwards and he goes, you made Spyro? He goes, that was my game. That's the game I played. That was my game. And that was actually kind of the first moment where that was a number of years ago, where it kind of clicked that I'd worked on stuff that affected people. I added to the world. I gave something.
For sure, yes.
Because Greg, we have to say thank you for the fun.
Well, and video games. And it's hearing you guys, and the love is healing whatever got busted in here.
Nice.
And
so I'm
slowly getting back to. I'm actually drawing a little again and painting a little bit, and really looking forward to doing more. So thank you.
So, since you are talking about that, I'm going to challenge you and the people who are watching us. I had an idea that I'm an awful interviewer, and I believe that people will say, "Oh, you talk about that game, my favorite game, and you didn't ask that, why did he painted that, or whatever." So, if people have questions to do, could you answer them? Like, imagine.
Oh, no, I'd love to. I would love to.
I would gather more questions and we do.
Please, I would love to.
Or I haven't thought that. Imagine 5 minutes with one person if they want to appear or something.
No, I would love to, because, like I said,
they ask a question.
This is helping me. I love to give back, and I love to share and tell these stories, and it's helping me. Here, getting this feedback is helping me,
Nice.
And it's also. It's talking to people, and certain questions. It was like the whole Tales thing, Treasure Tales. I'd forgotten completely about that. Until somebody saw something, then asked a question. Like, oh wait, yeah. I think. Okay, I forgot about that. And so hopefully.
You thought it was another designer, right? You talked to another.
I'd forgotten completely about it. I'd forgotten it completely existed. And then I assumed there was more. Then I got digging through my notes, and there was like 3 of us working on it.
Okay.
So,
there's a challenge for you at home who are watching us. If you want
yeah,
a question
please ask away.
Nice. I will
Now,
try to
as I say, it's been 20 and 30 years for most of these, so a lot of things I won't remember. And I had a very, like on the Sonic stuff, very narrow, you know, I was doing the artwork. And so I know very little about the music or the big pictures and that kind of stuff. But you never know what I may know or may remember.
Right. It could be questions about your favorite pizza or whatever.
Favorite pizzas.
I would like to
Your favorite Lego set.
Right. Yeah. I know you're a big fan of Star Wars, so there is a lot of. It would be a whole
Star
video.
Trek fan, so you can be a Star Trek fan and a Star Wars fan, both.
True.
Oh, I'm going to add another question: yes or no? Star Trek or Star Wars?
Both the same. Now, if I had to pick, classic Star Trek.
What about Dune? What about Dune? Dune, the Dune movie. The old one, the classic.
I love the old
1984.
One. Yes. Love the 1984 version.
Yes.
Enjoyed. The new one is beautiful.
Yes.
And it had some wonderful scenes. It had some very powerful scenes in it. I'm waiting until I see the second half. But I love the David Lynch's 1984 Dune. It had some problems. Love it.
But the soundtrack of Toto.
The soundtrack.
Amazing. It's amazing.
The soundtrack is beautiful. I just keep looking at this little guy. I mean, that's just that's next level. I mean, that's.
If you ever came to Portugal, talk to us. Let's.
I'd love to. See if I remember. Obrigado is about the only word I can remember.
Obrigado.
That's true.
Okay, so thank you, obrigado. It was an honor. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the things that I sent you. And
that's beyond. I can't.
And I have to thank you. We have been talking from messages from months, and thank you for answering me. Thank you for the patience and everything. You're awesome.
Oh no, it's to say it's. I don't know if I can express how much this means to me, and how much it's helping me get over my anxieties and insecurities and stuff that have stopped me from being creative for the last 15 years. So.
You've been in the museum for 15 years?
I stopped making video games 15 years ago. Well, 2005. I've worked at the museum for coming up on 6 years now.
Okay.
And my job there is literally a minimum wage. Most of my coworkers are 20 to 25 years old. It's or actually a couple of people, it's their first job they've ever had. They're like right out of high school, and they're kind of wondering why are you here? Because I want to be. And I need the money.
Right.
So,
don't you paint for the kids? You don't. Mm-hmm. Don't you paint for the kids? Don't you draw?
Occasionally. In fact, they just had the summer camp kids that where the parents actually dropped them off for the day. One of the weeks was the theme for the camp was mythical creatures, and so they were coming up with learning about different mythical creatures. And then the last day they were creating ones of their own, and I went in and helped them draw out. Oh. Some creature with a head of a lion and an eagle with the body of a bear and stuff.
Great teacher that they are having.
It was a lot of fun. I get paid for that one. I'm getting paid to play. I'm paid to be silly and draw monsters and sing silly songs and play around with a bunch of 6-year-olds. Which that's about how old I am most of the time. So it's somewhere between 6 and 12. So
kids don't talk about Sonic, and you
they do. It's very interesting.
Really,
because more so now after the movies. Because the kids would go see the movie. They may not have played the Sonic games, but they went to go see the Sonic movies.
Right.
And there have been a couple times where I'll get talking. The kids will be, they'll be wearing a Sonic T-shirt or a Sonic hat or something, and I'll get talking to them, and then or we get talking with the parents. And I've got a hat and a little Sonic pin and a Spyro pin. Once in a while, a parent will say, "Oh, that's Spyro."
Nice.
And well, I need to brag just a little bit here. Let me, that's once in a while. Then they're like, "Ah, that's my game." So
Nice. That's so nice. Man, it was an honor. Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Pleasure.
It was beyond my expectation. Because when we are kids, even if we see the credits, first of all, we think it's a game made from Sega. And then even if we see credits and we see Craig Stitt, okay, it's a person.
Just names.
Just a name.
Yes.
And now it's a person. It's you have a life, you have a voice, you have, and I met you, and it's awesome. Thanks to internet.
Even I get that way. The other day, what was I watching? I think it was watching YouTube. It was going back and looking at watching just a YouTube video of Sonic 2.
Yeah.
And the credits roll at the end, and it was this. I was both those people at the same time. I'm the person just watching the credits roll by and all these names, and the video game fan. But at the same time, those names are going by. It's like, I know them. I know them.
Nice.
And it was this surreal moment of, that's my name. It was this bizarre moment of yeah.
It's super fun, this kind of stuff. Video games are awesome. So
one thing he's saying, and they're not. People want to blow them off as, they're just kids. Like, not anymore. not even remotely anymore. My whole thing is, I never wanted to grow up. When I was about 25, I met this lady who had we were working with a bunch of kids, and she was just yelling at them and calling them names because they weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm like, that's not how you encourage a bunch of 14-year-olds, is tell them they're going to look stupid. It's like, do you remember being 14?
Right.
And I remember that day I went, I'm never going to be her. I'm not going to ever be her. And I kind of stopped growing up at that moment.
Nice.
So, but yeah, you look at Lego, half the Lego sets out there are not meant for kids. They are meant for adults.
Yeah.
They're meant to be put together and put on a shelf someplace and kept on display.
And also the Sega games are made for us, all ages.
Yeah, when if you do that right, if you look at TVs and movies now, the really successful ones, they're the same. The little kids can enjoy them, and there's a whole different movie if you're an adult watching it.
Yes.
It's multi-layered, and so. And I think that's good. I think that's, I think adults staying in touch with. Well, it's that empathy thing we're coming back.
And that's the Peter Pan effect. We all have it.
What did you say?
The Peter Pan. Yes. Peter Pan. We all want to be Peter Pan. Never grow up.
Never grow up. So, yeah, I'm definitely Peter Pan.
And fly.
Flying would be good. It's because of guys like you, people like you, that I'm able even to do that I'm able to take those and do any painting on it. Because 3 years ago I couldn't. I would have picked up the pencil or the paintbrush and gone, no, I'll do this later. But
even with the skills that you learned, you couldn't create nothing, or it just the only thing doesn't move.
it's like writer's block. You would sit down to write, and just indecision. Just all of a sudden, you don't trust anything, or anything you do, you don't like it, and you just crumple it up. And
Greg, it's a pleasure to listen to you. But I have a friend with that problem. Its name is Consciência. He said that the same problem, the same anxiety issues. I understand. I'm living with him. Not me personally, but him. It's complicated. I understand. I have not that problem. I don't think I have it. I don't know. Maybe I do. But yes. But to him, it's complicated. He's a musician, and sometimes he cannot do anything. I truly understand that.
And it can be something you love to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which makes it harder.
Right.
You know, I can imagine a musician wanting to play, and just your brain just so much, and you shut down. It just goes just blank. So it's a hard one, and I think it's getting worse. I think it's across the whole world. I think
Worldwide,
anxiety.
Yeah.
I think it's something about, I don't know if it's this overload from social media and our devices that we're talking about, or something is causing more people to, and it's not that we're lazy, it's not that, you know, we're doing this, or, you know, it's just like, no, there's something.
It's not, for me, it's my job. It's my job. If I wasn't in my job, I was complete. For me, it's my job, but I have to control it. I have 3 kids and 2 step kids, and I have to control it. It's my obligation. I have it. I have to control it. It's not easy. It's never easy. But I see our friend Zé Consciência. He has some serious problems with traveling, anxiety issues. Sometimes he cannot do anything at home. His job is complicated. It's very complicated.
And sometimes you're fortunate that you have, you know, something that you can anchor to and hold on to, your family and your kids, and you're very fortunate that that's enough to hold on to, because it's sometimes having my son helped, but then also and luckily though, sometimes that's not enough, and that makes it even worse, because all of a sudden now you're letting your family down, you're letting your kids down, and then you beat yourself up even more.
Yes, that's true.
So
I had an example. There was one day I was just, nothing was going right. Even the one shelf of the kitchen fell off. Everything was falling off. And I was with my kid, 4 years old, 3 years old, and he was playing, and I started to play with him, and everything was much easier. I just played with him and enjoyed being with him, and that's all.
This is just a chemical computer.
Yeah.
And if the wrong chemicals are getting in there, so you got to find something to get those good chemicals going.
Right.
And
okay, thank you so much.
Okay, well, my pleasure.
A lot of fun.
And okay, well, we'll definitely talk to you later. And yeah, you know, if you get some questions, please forward them on to me, or if we want to, you know, throw this up and you want to answer some questions that people sent you, we can do it that way, both. Whatever.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Take care.
Awesome talk.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
So, did you like it? I loved it. I never in a million years I thought that something like this would happen to me. I'm not a little kid, but when I was a kid, here in Portugal, in a little tip of Europe, talking with Craig Stitt, one of the designers of Sega and Insomniac, talking about games that wasn't released. I love these kind of things. For me, this was just epic. Craig is an amazing guy. Thank you so much, and thank you who watched this. As we said in the talk, credits are that those names are just not names, are persons, they are people who help things turn into reality. So just a few more minutes, watch the next credits, the people who make this happen for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Be happy, have fun, and bye.